To live in this world, you must be able to do three things. To love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it, and when the time comes to let it go, to let it go. Those are the words, as many of you know, from a poem by Mary Oliver. I've repeated those words again and again in almost every funeral I've done for a number of years now. Too many times. It's become a big part of my own spiritual life, my own praying, really. It's almost really like a liturgy to me in itself, those words. We have three things to do, she says. We have to love what is mortal. Well, that's not easy. That means they're going to die, and they're going to fail us, and they're going to get sick, and they're not going to feel like connecting with us. We must love what is mortal. We must be able to hold it against our bones, knowing my own life depends on it, your own life depends on it. In other words, I have to really make this mortal life a part of my own, knowing that someday this relationship will end, together physically at least. That's pretty courageous, to love what is mortal that much. And finally, when the time comes to let it go, to let it go. Winter's a-coming. It begins to get darker and darker every day. The sun sets tonight at 5:01, I believe. There's already a chill in the air. Those are the last of the roses out there now, just outside the door. And everywhere there's just this continuous falling down of leaves. Still, winter carries its own beauty for those who have eyes to see. I'm not sure I would call it the funnest time of the year, but I would say clearly that there's something quite beautiful about it, the winter, if we seek it. There's an invitation sounding here this morning. I don't know if you caught it. It came out in word and it comes out in sacrament today. But it's sounding also in this advent of winter. It's an invitation, really, to embrace mortality, to embrace your own mortality and the mortality of everybody you love, to embrace our mortality, to accept it as part of the rhythm of things, as who we are, and as a matter of fact, what the entire cosmos is about. Embrace it so that we might awaken to life, an awakening that is not possible if we only embrace the good times and only the light. And so just here at the beginning of November, the universal church celebrates those who have preceded us in death, and those yet in the great transition, those still caught up in the great transition, still in the process of coming to completion in the one love. It is the feast of all saints, and tomorrow the celebration of all souls. In Mexico and in most of Latin American nations, these days are celebrated as the Días de los Muertos, the days of the dead They gather in one another's homes and at cemeteries. It might serve us well today or tomorrow to take a second to go to a cemetery. On these days, relatives and friends gather. They gather to remember, they gather to pray for those who have died and to celebrate the lives of those who have died. For the whole church, all of November is dedicated to their memory. You and I both know there are a wide range of attitudes around death and the contemplation of death. For some, death is a unique experience, a once-in-a-lifetime experience not to be missed. Others say, "Let me sleep through it, please." And some, and I've worked with so many of these actually, literally go into a panic, this deep dread that it could be the actual utter annihilation of themselves and everybody they love. Wondering if this is all there is. Death brings up lots of important questions that absolutely no other experience in all of life opens up for us. Questions like who dies? What matters? What is the meaning of life? What's my purpose on this earth? In the light of death, certain questions come up that will not surface other than in the light of death itself. And because of death, we begin to explore our unfinished business so that we die with no regrets. Before death, we explore losses and fears as part of the process of coming to know ourselves. In the face of death, we confront the question, who am I now? Who am I without my name, without my role, without my partner, without my home or my career or my credit cards or my keys, without my hopes and my dreams? Without all the paraphernalia that props up my personal identity. Who am I now? And what is surrender? How do I respond now to all the little deaths that come to me before I die? All I know how to say is that through engagement with death, when it comes up for us, we are brought face to face with the essence of who I am in a supportive community. I come up against just that, my essence. We all bring to that question, though, each of us, bring our own theological practices, our own diverse beliefs or imaginations, and some of those come from many wisdom traditions around the world. Ram Dass describes death as absolutely safe. Nobody fails at this one. And in keeping with that open-ended attitude about the continuity of life, we might consider surrendering ourselves back into life itself, releasing our consciousness back into the world. What I want to pray for all of us today is that we keep an open-minded attitude about the continuity of life, because that's what we honor today. The continuity of life. If you've ever had a chance to read Kurt Vonnegut's science fiction novel, Cat's Cradle, he describes an attitude about immortality through what he imagines as this bokononistic, or I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, death ritual. When the bokononists die, when they're about to die, They serve God by reciting a very simple prayer. God made mud. God made mud. God made mud. And Vonnegut describes the miraculous process by which God awakens mud to a world of unsurpassed beauty and wonder. And at the end, when mud lies down and goes to sleep, it exclaims, I was some of the mud that got to sit up and look around. What memories of mud to have. I loved everything I saw. Lucky me. Lucky mud. I was some of the mud that got to sit up and look around. Whew. That notion of immortality, I got to add, is compatible with our own traditions and notions of life after death. But people with diverse beliefs about the afterlife can find their place in any sort of worldview like that. But by contributing our small increment now of consciousness to the growth and the evolution of all of reality, life itself, we too can begin to exclaim right now, lucky me, lucky mud. And we have learned from the experiences of life and our engagement with one another that we must still finish our business if we are to be prepared for the mysterium tremendum, the tremendous mystery that occurs at life's exit point. Those who appreciate the blast of winter and get ready for it catch a whiff of the beauty when it comes. If we are to catch a whiff of the beautiful in death, we need to get ready for it. We must practice dying, practice letting go, practice surrendering, not at the end, but now. When something confronts us and we have to let go, then we have to let go with some sort of peace and some sort of trust. We must surrender so that we can be ready for that ultimate letting go. Plato was asked at the end of his life, as I'm sure most of you know, to sum up his whole philosophy. And he put it in just those two words: practice dying. I think he might have meant that we should practice dying to our past, dying to what we know, and opening ourselves now to the unknown. We should begin to contemplate change as it happens all around us, the impermanence of this physical world. This has been a practice for those on a quest for truth in every age. For we Catholic Christians, we start preparing for our dying from the moment we are born. We don't need to be afraid to think about this, because even reflecting on our mortality leads to a sacred life. It's a gateway to wisdom. Perhaps, my friend, as our outer vision begins to fade, we start paying attention to that inner vision. And we may recognize the unconditional love that was there all the time and will still embrace us now fully, so that that passage will be a graceful one. Let me conclude by saying what this feast is about. for someone who has prepared. Dying comes not as defeat, but as a celebration. The crowning and most glorious moment of life. Death comes as the crowning and the most glorious moment of life. Lucky me, lucky mud.